Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining this session of the gLocal Events Week, the Evaluation Week. My name is Ali Safarnejad, and my session today is titled Design and Deploy Your Own AI Interview Agent. And this is going to be a hands-on workshop where you get to configure and design and launch an AI-powered interviewer and let yourself be interviewed by it. And then we're going to look at some of the thematic results in real time. So today's session is a follow-up to my presentation yesterday, which was a theoretical framework for assessing the quality of these AI interviewers. When I compared 6 LLMs and rated them against that framework in that session. So just a heads up also that tomorrow I'll co-present with my UNICEF colleagues a pilot case where we use the same AI interviewer that we're going to work on together in a real program evaluation in the Maldives. So look out for that as well. Since this session is a workshop, I won't dwell too much on how AI interviewers can improve evaluation practice, but I would be curious to know, and I wanted to just do a quick poll here. What is your current feeling about using AI to conduct data collection? And you can pick your answer from one of the choices there, or type in your answer yourself into the chat box. Okay, two from Catalina. So curious but cautious. Very good. Yeah, so I think hopefully this and Ahmed as well too. So that gives me a good perspective where we're starting from. Thank you for that. This is also my Turing test to make sure that everyone is here is a real person and not AI transcribers. So the purpose of this session is really to get introduced to one AI interviewer to inform your decisions in the future, since you're curious but cautious, to kind of decide if you want to use it and under what conditions. Now, one disclaimer is that I started to develop this AI interviewer about 2 years ago for my own use in evaluations. And when I saw the emergence of all these powerful and fast LLMs, I thought this would be a good use of it to make our evaluations better. There are now a number of commercial AI interviewers available for paid service, but just for convenience and economy, and because I'm more familiar and confident to answer any questions and guide you around it, I'm going to use the one that I developed for my own use, and I've experimented with it a lot. So hopefully with this experience and guidance I provided both in the framework and what we do today, you'll feel kind of equipped to decide how you want to proceed on your own AI interviewer journey. Now, just so that we're clear on the agenda, I've already covered the intro and kind of a level setting and a purpose, but to make it absolutely clear, the two stages of the agenda today. First, we'll wear the evaluation manager hat and together use the admin module of the AI interviewer, which you can see here on the screen. This one, the dark one, the agentic AI interviewer dashboard, we'll use this to design our evaluation interview. And given that we have a very brief window together, 1 hour, I propose to pick one of two topics that I thought about before. One would be around SDGs, evaluation around SDGs, and another about AI and evaluation, the governance around that. So you can think about that a little bit. Once we get to the actual design stage, I'll propose it to you and you can type in a chat box which you prefer. So we'll spend about 15 minutes on the design and then we'll launch the interview. and you'll change your hats to be the interviewees and respond to the interviews that we collectively develop together. And that's that screen that you see on this side, the demo screen. So that's what you're going to use to do the interview. And you can either do that together with me, and I'll, do it myself during the session, or you can kind of pause and step out and take 15 minutes to do it on your phone or your computer. So, and then join back in. So you have a choice to do that as well. After we complete the survey, we'll come back for a plenary, and I'll show you very quickly the summary results on the dashboard and briefly kind of give some reflections on it. And then we can have a Q&A if you have any questions about the survey results or the experience with the AI interviewer. We can discuss that. And then I'll quickly close with some final thoughts where I think are the best use cases and cover anything that went uncovered, and also tell you what I'm working on next. So if there's a chance for collaboration or co-experimentation, you might be interested in that. Now, just to note, since I'm doing this alone, I don't have any co-facilitator, and to avoid any random microphone noises, I muted everyone. But once we get into the QA, I'll turn them back on, and the chat box is of course open. So please do put in your comments in there, especially during the design phase, so that I can see, where you want to guide this design towards. And also to let you know that the session is being recorded. The gLocals wants to publish these, so I'm recording these to return it back to them. All right, if that's okay, shall we go to the dashboard and start to design our interview? Let's see if I can do this by. Okay, so I hope that you can see my agentic interviewer dashboard. This is the brain of the of the operation where we design our interviewer. And I'm going to go through each of the control points so we can adjust them together and customize the interview for today. And feel free to put anything in the chat box if you want to change it from what I'm suggesting. But I've kind of have a script so that we can stay on the clock for the 1 hour. So the top decision is, well, let me actually show you the two tabs. So the app settings is where you actually do the design of the interview, and thematic insights is where after we do the interview, you're going to see in real time what are the themes that are evolving from the interview questions that come up. So we're going to focus right now on the app settings, and the first setting is just the app title, what we want to put at the top of the app as we launch it. So just for a simple decision, we call it the gLocal 20 AI interviewer. And now the decision, whether we want to do an evaluation of the SDG framework or one about AI governance. So that's where you define the name of the evaluation and then the purpose, etc. So starting with the name, do you have any strong preferences? So we can do the SDG, talking about did we deliver so far or have the potential to do so by 2030? Because I think SDGs is something we're all can speak about both professionally and personally, so it's an easy one. But also the other one, evaluation of AI governance and evaluation. This would look at how AI policies and principles and guidance are shaping or should be shaping evaluation practice. So this one might become a bit contorted because of the self-reference, using an AI interviewer to evaluate the use of AI in evaluation. So it might take some mental gymnastics, but ultimately, if you don't mind that contortion, it's worth exploring because it's very relevant. Okay, so I see already one suggestion from Mark for SDG. Thank you. If everyone is okay with that, let's go with the SDGs. So we call this, let's just call it evaluation name, and very simply an evaluation of SDG framework. Okay. And then the purpose. So this essentially is explaining why are we doing this, and all of this is important for the interviewer because you have to give it some context of what it is that is going to be explored. So I will say to assess how well the SDGs delivered on their promise. So keep it short and sweet. Let's say for the stakeholders, or have the potential to do so by 2030. So something like that. Next is the AI persona. So as probably you've interacted with a lot of AI agents, you know that you have you give the agent a personality that you wanted to emulate. So a standard one that I use in these AI interviews is to be respectful, to be tactful and empathetic. Usually I don't change these except, for example, we had one project with young people and they wanted the interviewer to be less formal and more bright and cheerful and humorous. So that's when I changed it. But otherwise, normally this is the tone that you want from your AI interviewer. So I'll keep that the same. The next is the AI engine selection. And here you can see an option of three engines. One is the Gemini Flash Lite, Gemini Pro, and a fine-tuned model that I built customized for doing AI interviews. So these have different capabilities and costs related to it. The Flash is fast, but it's not a thinking model. So it's going to give you very rapid answers and very cheaply, but it has a very small memory. So it doesn't remember your conversations as well over the course of an interview. And the Pro is a thinking model. It's more advanced, but it's again not fine-tuned like the third one. The third one is both fast and fine-tuned, but it's not a thinking model. So for this one, my suggestion is to go with the Gemini Pro. I think that will show you the best performance, although it's a little bit more costly, but has a better memory and more thoughtful question construction. So we'll go with Gemini Pro. And then here you get to select the language. So this is both the spoken language, the language that the agent understands, and it's also the language that it transcribes in, and the language that it reads and writes in. So it's all the languages all in one. And these are the languages I've already tested it with in the different experiments I run. So, there's much more that could be supported, but for today's purpose, I'm just going to select all the ones that are available. There's no cost to it to just have all of them. So we'll select all of these. And then the most core part of the interview is, of course, the interview guide. So here you will define what are the questions that you're going to be posed during the interview. And this is a semi-structured interview guide. So just like you would do in for an evaluation, you give it some structure, but this could be adjusted in the course of the interview itself. Now, for this SDG one, I have some preset ones, so I'll put those in. But if you have additional ones that you want to ask, please type those into the chat box and I can incorporate those. But usually I start out with a question around, a soft one where you can ask the person, to talk about themselves. So I'll put in, can you tell me a bit about yourself? And just to probe that, to go a bit deeper, to be more specific, I added a probe after it, which is where are you currently living and working? So if the information diverges quite a bit, at least I know that I can get that bit of information about the location and the location of the person. Then let me delete these preset questions from here. Another question, which is now getting into the core of what we want to find out, is around the SDGs. So I'm going to ask, thinking about one SDG goal or target that matters to your work, what is your honest assessment of progress towards it? So really getting the lived experience of the interviewees from that question. And the probe here, if the respondent indicates some progress made, was the SDG framework itself the cause of that progress? So we're kind of asking the person to make that causal connection between the progress and the SDG framework, and to have them explain why they think that is. So that can come as a probe after. And then the final question, just to keep it short, I had 3 questions, which is from where you sit, and this is, their country, city, community, whatever they answered in their first question. How did the SDGs reflect the most pressing development challenges when it was adopted in 2015? So looking backwards to when it started, was it relevant at that time to where you were? And then the probe on that is what should have been included that was not, or what was included that should not have been included in the SDGs. So those are the 3 questions I had in mind. Feel free to suggest any other ones, but otherwise I will show you the other features before I save it. You still have time to put in anything. This other control is about the maximum question. So as you can imagine, there's no time limit in an AI interview. People can go and come back and answer it just like a survey. So in a sense, because of that, at some point you want to say, okay, we are done now with the interview. I got the information that I want. So instead of a time limit, we have a limit on the number of questions, similar to a survey. Also, it's a way of controlling the cost, and it also helps to inform the respondent where they are in the process, so that they can track, am I close to the end, or is there a lot more left to it? So for the purpose of this 3 questions and kind of experimenting a little bit with the other features that I'll show you, I would say like 12 questions is probably reasonable to answer in about 15 minutes. And this is the maximum. So it's not necessarily that the agent is going to reach that, but let's give it a maximum so it has something to work with. The next one, max probing attempt. So LLMs, when instructed to probe, sometimes are quite ruthless in extracting information they've been instructed to extract. So they end up probing you endlessly until you answer, and they exhaust all the max questions that you've given them. So this max probing attempt is a directive to put a limit on how many times the agent is going to probe a single question without receiving a clear answer before it moves on to the next question. So usually I set it to 2. That's kind of a reasonable number. If the first person doesn't answer the first time, you ask again, but then you move on to ask the next question. And then allow reordering and rephrasing. So you don't want, the question here is if we want the AI to reorder the questions in the interview guide, the A, B, and C, to fit the flow of the conversation. So for longer question surveys, sometimes, for example, the person might have a cue in something that they've said, and you may want to skip, a question to ensure that conversation is fluid. So this flag tells the AI agent, yes, you're allowed to reorder the interview guide in a way that flows better. And if it's unchecked, then you say to them, strictly follow the order that I gave you. Don't diverge from the order of the interview guide. So I'll keep it on so that I give it a bit flexibility, although I don't think in 3 questions it's going to jump too much around, but we can see about that. And then the allow rephrasing, again, you're giving the agent some leverage if they want to reflect the terms or phrases that the respondent uses, and the information they provided to feed that into the questions, to reformulate the questions slightly rather than sticking strictly to the original wording of the questions. You can do that with this flag on. So I allow it both the reordering and phrasing by default here. All right, so these are the settings that can be set dynamically for setting up the interview. So I'm going to save, and this is going to right away be uploaded to the agent that's going to use it. Now, some deep settings that happen behind the scenes, and these take a little bit longer to bake, so I've preset them outside of the admin tool. One of them is the document grounding, um, grounding it to the specific context that the AI uses to respond to specific questions. It's kind of like the way that Notebook LLM uses your documents that you fed it to be its first source of information before drawing on its general knowledge. Grounded documents do that for the AI interviewer. The second one that you'll see later is the avatar and voice. So I've included some preset voices that are economical and more, more cost friendly. But there are many voices that are available when you look through Google and different platforms. Um, Same with the avatar. So I've used my spouse as the model with her permission. And there's some free software you can use to create your own avatar. It takes a bit of work, and I haven't explored it that deeply, but that's also possible to bake it in, but it's not something that's set dynamically that you can do in the dashboard right now. And finally, the third kind of a built-in element is the restriction. So there's some restrictions that you give to the LLM, like don't advise and don't share internal information, um, like how you prioritize. These are some general instructions that are foundational to the agent's identity and how it corresponds with the interviewee. So they're not dynamically changeable, because if you do change them, it breaks the operation, and the testing goes haywire. So it's better to set them and do it only after you've tested it very rigorously. So if you want to learn more about all this underlying architecture of the AI agent, I give a presentation last year at the gLocals 2025, and there's a video of it that I'll share, whoever wants to see it at the end, with the link to that. All right, so we're done with the setup. Now we want to uh, jump into actually launching the survey and using it. So the AI agent is already live and it's prepped. The settings are configured. This is the QR code. If you scan it on your phone, it will load up on your phone. Or if you want to use the link to go to it on the if you want to go to it on your computer, you can also do so. Let me paste it into the chat box so you have it also. It makes it easier to click if you don't have a QR code. Here we go. Okay, so the link is in the chat box as well. Now, you can, as I mentioned, you can either click it or scan it and do it yourself and rejoin later, or you can tag along with me as I work through it on the screen. If you do it on your own, please try to give varied answers, give some incomplete answers and some specific or detailed answers, or even be a bit difficult with it to see how it reacts, and see how the agent handles your inputs. And if you do go and you want to come back, oh, okay, I see Catalina says there's an error too, that is not found. Okay, let me just check to make sure that it's still running. That's not a good sign if it's, let me see on the screen. So in case you cannot get it, I may have to just do it myself. Is anybody else able to access okay, I see it's loaded here. Maybe I made a mistake in copy and pasting the URL. So let me copy paste the URL again. See if did I make a mistake on that? Can anybody confirm that they can load it on their own? it might take a little bit of time in the first instance. Okay, great. Miho says it works. Sorry, Catalina, that you cannot. Maybe you follow along with me uh, if you cannot load it on your end. So let me then, yeah, so if you go away and do it on your own, okay, great, Kathleen, that's great. So yeah, if you go and do it on your own, please meet back in 15 minutes. So now my time is 3:25, so let's say 3:40. If we can come back and then we talk about our experience on it. But if you want to do it with me, you can also do that. And I'll walk you through my own experiment with it. Okay, so let's do it. So the first thing that you see is the start interview, and as soon as you start it, the AI agent is going to start to um, print out its questions. Now, turn that off. So one of the features that you see up here is the toggle voice on and off. So if you don't want to hear the avatar speaking, you can turn it off and just follow along because it's only speaking out what you see written here in the chat box memory. And also, if you don't want to see the avatar, you just want to do a very simple text-based version, you can also toggle this on and off so you don't see the avatar as well. The other feature that you see at the top is the language. So as you see, we selected all the languages that are available. So during the course of the interview, you can switch the language, and I'll show you that as we get into it. And the rest of it is quite similar to any chat box, right? So you type your response here, you press send once you've typed your input in. There's a microphone if you want to speak to it, and there's a progress bar that shows how far you are in the process of the interview. And this gives you a kind of indication of what's happening, it's thinking, or if it's responding, etc. So its first question is always the consent. This is baked into it. It's one of the foundational elements that's in there. So it's saying, this interview is part of the evaluation titled an evaluation of the SDG framework. So this was the reason why we put that title in there. And the purpose is to assess how well the SDGs delivered on their promise. So this was exactly what we told it. This is the title and this is the purpose of the evaluation. And then it reads the consent statement. This is voluntary, kept confidential. You can tell me if you want to skip a question or tell me to end the interview at any time. Do you consent to proceed? So on this one, an important point here is if you tell it no, it will agree and it will close off, so your interview will end. So in case you do that, the only way to get back would be to clear your cache and start it again. So just a warning. Hopefully others who are doing it on your own will figure this out. But I'm going to say yes to keep us going. Yes, please. I want to continue. So that's my answer to that. So it prints out my answer as well. And you the sound is turned off, but if you were doing this on your own, you would and this was on, you would hear the voice of the speaker. So it goes into his first question. Great, thank you. And could you tell me please a bit about yourself? So that is asking the very broad question without getting into the probes yet. So I'm going to say, I am an evaluation specialist, so I'm also not going to, it's also, you have to make sure you don't talk too much after you finish. It's a 4-second turn off. So I'm an evaluation specialist, so I'm not going to tell it yet where I'm from because I know that probe is coming and I want to provoke it to ask that probing question from me. So here now it says, thank you for sharing that. And where are you currently living and working? So it comes back with the probe because I didn't tell it. So just to illustrate also the languages at this point, if I switch it, for example, to French at this point, uh, it actually sends an instruction to the AI to tell it to change the language to French. So now it prints out the same question uh, to continue to tell me, where you're working and where you're living. And this also, as I mentioned, is also the language that it understands as you speak into the microphone. So I'm going to use my very broken French to try to tell it that I live in Bangkok, Thailand, and see if it understands. J'habite à Bangkok en Thailand. Okay, that's all right. So this is also a good way to test if your pronunciation is good. Um, So there it goes, and now it should register that and move on to the next. And just so we come back to English, because probably my French is not good enough to follow this through. I'll switch this back to English again, and we'll see the same question asked. So it says, okay, we'll continue in English. Now it goes into that second question, thinking about one SDG goal or target that matters most to your work. What is your honest assessment of the progress toward it? So here, just to show you and kind of provoke the AI to use some of its thinking, I'm going to give it a false answer. I'm going to say, for example, I think we progressed on SDG 2, which is the Zero Hunger SDG, um, very well. There is now wide cellular coverage in remote areas of the country. So I'm giving it some kind of a false answer to trigger it to see if it actually starts to probe these and try to get clarification on it. Okay, so that's interesting to hear the progress on cell coverage. My understanding is that SDG2 focuses on zero hunger. So it's good it caught that, while infrastructure like cellular networks is often linked to SDG9. So it's drawing on its internal training knowledge to make the linkages. So could you help me understand how the expansion of cellular coverage has contributed to the progress of SDG2 in Europe? So it's trying to link my answer somehow. It's not completely rejecting it. It's trying to say, okay, I think you have something going there, but let's try to figure it out. And so, okay, now I'm gonna maybe tell it a better answer. So let's say that talk this one through. Um, I think we made good progress on SDG 4 with greater access and retention of students. What I think is missing in that SDG, and I wish was more prominent, was considerations of mental health and psychosocial well-being of children, in addition to targets set for their academic skills and competencies. So a slightly longer answer here for it to chew on to see how it processes this information, but let me send that to it. And see. Okay, so it says, thank you for sharing that perspective on SDG 4 and for highlighting the importance of mental health, which you feel was overlooked. You mentioned seeing greater access and retention of students. In your view, was the SDG framework itself a direct cause of that progress? So it's going into that probe that we gave it earlier on to make the linkages between the SDG framework and the progress that I'm mentioning to it that was made. So here I'll entertain it with some answer. Let's say, yes, partially. I think COVID and conflicts set back education for many, but family nurturing helped a lot to facilitate it. So you can go back also to, I need to stop talking after I finish my sentence. All right, so I'll delete that part and I can check, if I don't like the answer that I it transcribed. I can make edits to it, but I think that should be okay. Let's see. Now it says, thank you for clarifying that. It sounds like progress was influenced by several factors beyond just the SDG framework itself. You've already mentioned that you wished mental health was more prominent in SDG 4. So here's going back to something I said earlier that it kept in its memory. Broadening that a bit from your perspective in Thailand. So again, it's contextualizing it to my context here. How well did the SDG reflect the country's most pressing development challenges when they were adopted in 2015? So here again, I want to provoke it a bit. So I'm going to give it a very vague, incomplete answer, as if someone who typed it incorrectly or misunderstood. So I'm just going to say, okay. Um, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. So it's asking again, probing again on the same. From your vantage point in Thailand, how well do you think the SDG captured the country's most significant development needs back in 2015? So this is one of the advantages of it, is that it doesn't leave the question. If it was a survey, it might have moved on, but it actually tries to fill in the blank and get a good answer from the respondent as much as possible. So I will again maybe give it another incomplete answer, but maybe slightly more um, provoking, or something that it can link to something, and see how it responds. So I'm just going to say gender equality. Oh, so now it's picking that up and saying, okay, could you elaborate how gender equality was a pressing issue in Thailand back in 2015, and whether you feel the SDG framework adequately addressed it? So it's trying to gain traction on the things I'm saying, and getting me to talk a bit more about it. Okay, so I see, I think I want to rush this a bit because we have limited time. So I also want to demonstrate how skipping questions works. At any time, you can actually tell it to skip this question and it should move on. Of course, we can skip that question, and we have already reached the end of the questions I had for you. And so this is one actually I put in, baked it into the memory of it. It wasn't one that was in the interview guide, but it's asking, how did you feel about this interview? How did it go? Where did it fall short or excel compared to other interviews you've been involved in? So on this one, I'm just going to give it an answer like, I like that you remembered my previous answers and you recalled it, but I feel like the interview was a bit short. So something like that. All right. And so thank you for sharing that feedback. It's very helpful. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. If you have any follow-up questions, you can contact Ali Safarnajad. Goodbye. So this is also a standard baked in closure to the interview that can be customized. So for now, I put in my own name at the end, but if someone else launches it, that can be also put in. So at this point, once the interview ends, all the controls are locked. So I cannot change the language. I mean, I can still toggle this on and off, but that doesn't make any difference. But I cannot press anything. The interview is complete. So this concludes the demonstration of that. Now, if people have left off to do their own interviews, I'll just give them 1 minute while I also set myself back up to bring us back to the main presentation. Okay, next is Q&A. Right. Now, Okay, so I think now people should be back in case you left off to do your own interview. And we just completed the survey, and I just want to briefly show you the results of that survey in the thematic analysis, because as soon as the interview is finished, any interview, the analysis gets going. This analysis is done by a specialized AI agent, and that's been trained to review the completed transcripts. And the agent thematically analyzes the transcripts both deductively, meaning untrained, based on the content that it received, and inductively based on the set of themes that are given to it to look out for, meaning the previous interviews themes or anything that you feed to it beforehand, before it's launched. So we look for the themes under the thematic insights here. And as you can see now already, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, uh, 8, 7 themes that have emerged. So the themes label is on the left side, and the frequency that it happened is on the right side. Frequency is both within an interview, but also it counts across the interviews. And some of this is right now not being, it's a very unrefined thematic analysis. There's no data cleaning, and you can even see that the consent and language changes are assessed along with the core interview guide questions. So there's a bit of more work that needs to go into it. But nevertheless, it shows one of the key advantages of an AI interviewer in that it reliably and consistently can thematically analyze the interview transcripts in near real time. Um, as soon as that one interview is done, it does that thematic analysis and puts it on a dashboard for the evaluation manager. So you lose a bit in the depth in the AI interviews not being done by a human, but then you gain on the consistency in that feedback loop that can inform you as the evaluation manager to refine the design or troubleshoot in real time or align with the research needs. If you think you want to explore some theme further and you see it's a fringe topic, you might want to make it more prominent in your interview guide, and you go back to your dashboard, and you put that into your interview guide, and the next interview that gets launched will include that. So that's a very quick and easy way to provide evaluation managers some insights into the process and to become the human in the loop. The other one is the export of the transcript. So you can export the entire transcript of all the interviews to Excel. So you can also process it outside. I'll just briefly show you an older one from previously so you can get a sense of how those look. It's very simple. Um, you have the interview transcript text. So what the interviewer said, the question that was posed to it, and what the interviewee answered. So, and every interviewee will have a unique code. So this is interview number 2. So it sequentially goes down and records all of the inputs and outputs. Um, and it also has the timestamp of when those happen, so you can sort them out in the way that you want. So it's a very simple way that you can then export it out if you want to analyze it in your favorite platform. That can be also done. Okay, so with that, now let me move on, because I would be now keen to get your insights and your questions and thinking about this. What do you think about the themes that emerged? Was there anything that surprised you about it? But also anything, what do you think about the tool itself, the AI interviewer? You were a bit skeptical before. How does it compare now, and how does it compare to human interviews? And also what features in the interface or functioning you would wish for? And any questions that you want on in terms of clarification or questions about this drop, you can post those now. Yeah, and you can type in a chat box, or if you want, you can also raise your hand, and I can try to mute you, unmute you. Sorry. So maybe I can also just ask, is anybody planning to use an AI interviewer in the near future for your data collection and evaluations? Oh, Mark. Okay. Let me see if I can unmute you, Mark. Apologies. Allow Mike. Okay, there we go. There you go, Mike.
Thanks, Sally. That was great. I ran through something on water and sanitation on the with the interviewer, and it did, because I'm living in Western Australia. It did ask follow-up questions later on about Western Australia, and when I clarified, that my interest was South Asia, it then redirected, and a couple of the follow-ups were stronger than what I expected from the prompts. In terms of, it asked me about what I thought the follow-up was about. The follow-up to the question on SDG was the framework, the cause of the progress. It asked me quite a good follow-up on the post 2015, and was, in South Asia, did the SDGs address a gap that emerged from the MDGs? And so I thought that was that good point of clarification. So,
awesome.
And I came into this having no knowledge at all of AI interviews, and so I'm extremely, I feel grateful for the opportunity to get a bit of insight. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. Yeah, that's really good to hear. I'm glad that you also joined yesterday, because for colleagues who weren't there, I had another session where we explored the different LLMs and their capabilities. And indeed, this probing is one of the key dimensions for assessing the quality of an AI interviewer. So whatever you choose to use, I think that's an important element to look for. Is it able to translate and contextualize your interview guide question to the conversation that's ongoing? These are probabilistic models. They should be able to do that, but they do draw on their internal training and knowledge. So in this case, the SDGs, because there is a good history of it, they have a good knowledge of it. I think if we had done the other scenario that I suggested, the AI in evaluation, this is much more new. A lot of the guidance and the policies are just coming out, and some of these models are slightly older. Like Gemini 2.5 that I'm using its training date cutoff was January 2025. So that it won't have that internal knowledge, which then you can ground it by providing it documents, but that's a separate process that you can follow, and I would be glad to explore that with you in another session, because that's a very interesting area of work. And I think we discussed that a little bit yesterday also, how things can be contextualized because there are certain biases in the LLMs in how they have been trained. Thank you, Mark. Catalina, let me unmute you as well. Mike, there we go. Catalina, please, over to you.
Hi, Ali. Thank you so much for these great presentations and hands-on meeting, as we could all see how it works in real life. And I was really curious on seeing how this looks like and how you are analyzing the information that is coming from these interviews. From the beginning, I said that that I would like to explore this. Of course, AI is coming, and we all need to learn and make the best use of it. But I'm still concerned on some key things. For the first one is on the how easy can the answers be generated, and how to ensure that who is answering those questions is the real person that we wanted to interview and is not someone else. So I don't know if you are thinking of having video or recording the person, but that as well has a lot of implications, because of course someone else needs to be recorded, and how the person feels about this. I don't know how this is gonna change and how it's gonna change the behavior of people to feel confident in talking to a machine. So that's the first thing that I am concerned. The second thing is that what about the nonverbal communication, the gestures, the facial expressions, or the tone of the voice, and like all of the body language that you can see in real life and when you are interacting with a real person. Often people give very diplomatic answers, but you can see by their body language additional information that is not there and gives you more, gives you a little bit more on how the things are happening, and helps you to understand more the context. And I don't see this happening here. And as well, I don't know if with a video could be supported or strengthening. I don't know. So that's for me. And the other part is for me when I'm doing an interview in person is to see how quickly people react to a question and see how they manage to give you an answer but when you have this AI, it is like very automatic process. So I don't know if you can get that level of interpretation on how are they thinking about answering this question, because they can produce and elaborate better questions that if you are in a place where you just have spontaneous answers. Thank you so much, Ali, and I hope this helps you a lot.
Yeah, this is great, Carolina. I think you touched on a few great points and also gave me some insights of what else I need to work on. I mean, just to say at the start, is that I don't think at this point the AI interviewer is going to replace a human, and this is both from experience, but also as knowing the technology, is that like the patience that people have with sitting through an AI interview is a lot less with a human interviewer at this moment in time. But there is certain benefits that you get because of that kind of a mixture of being a survey and being able to record things very accurately. It's speed, the fact that it has the broad knowledge of all of the conversations that could be happening, and that you have one agent who interprets the questions in exactly the same instructions that is been given to it. So there's no enumerator issues. Training is very fast, deployment is very fast. So there's all these trade-offs that you get and some things that you lose, like that finesse of understanding facial expressions and tone of the voice. Those ones are kind of evolving. There's now, probably you've experimented with some of the real-time live agentic abilities like on Gemini and ChatGPT. Those are a bit costly at the moment, and especially when it comes to trying to pick up sentiment from the voice, from the tone, from the language. This is not an exact science right now. So that's an area that's being improved. The models are being trained, but the best at this point from my research into it is that we can give kind of a probabilistic estimate. Is this person, for example, frustrated or not, 50% or more or less, but it cannot do that very precisely. So I'm waiting for that to improve a bit and maybe update it based on that. But that's definitely will be a key transformational change to increase the information that you get back beyond the words that are set. So more to come on this. So keep watching this, and I'll keep improving it as well. I realize we're a bit short on time, 5 minutes, but I do want to answer. Also see on the chat box, I see Ahmad. May I ask about the customization you made to the AI agent? Did you do it by prompt or other setting? So the agent, the LLM that I used this time, I don't know if you were there, Ahmad, in the beginning where we designed it. So I used the plain Gemini Pro, um, uh, which is untrained, so it's not fine-tuned for this experiment. But there's another one that I used in some of my experimentation, which is a fine-tuned one, meaning that I've actually used hypothetical best case interviews to fine-tune it to become better at evaluation interviewing. But what I do is to prompt them and few shot prompt them with examples. So every time the interview is started, the agents are prompted with the instructions, including their interview guide, but also what persona they have to take and some of the internal mechanisms of what they need to do, how they need to behave, how they need to, for example, ask singular questions and neutral questions, everything that's important in an evaluative interview. So that's done there. Now, just before I close, because I do want to just mention a few things on what I think are the best use cases. I think this is right now the best use case of it is for large scale, multi-time zone, multilingual qualitative surveys. You know, if you were going to do a survey, probably this would give you additional depth than the plain surveys like a Survey Monkey. I would keep it shorter than human interviews if you were thinking about taking an interview guide and using it in that mode. You know, if a human interview can last 1 hour, I would keep this to half an hour because people do seem to log off quickly from talking. And it is also good for cases when it's demanding or costly to train a large number of enumerators to send out into the field, especially in places where you expect that the training will take a long time and the capacities are not there, or you're time pressured to get your data, for example, in emergency and humanitarian contexts. In terms of the data security, just to mention that the raw data of the interviews are stored in a Google Cloud database. So Google Cloud, like it's not like the other platforms like OpenAI and Cloud. And this is something when you're deciding on which system you want to use, is to make sure to think about that, because some of them will use your data to train their models, but Google Cloud services, they make it explicit in their policy that they will not use your data based on this system. And then the other is that everything is served on an enterprise server, so it's a very reliable. You know, there's no downtime on these because it's the same system that Google uses to host their own services like Google Drive and Gmail. Now, what I'm working on next, I think, in addition to the things that you gave me ideas for what I should be working on, is to enhance the document grounding features. Right now, as I mentioned, is baked into it at the time of compiling the app. But I want to make this a bit more dynamic so that people can do it on the interface, on the admin interface. For me, this is an evolving project, and I'm tinkering with the tech and AI and investing time into it to improve it as a public good. But if you have a research project or a field experiment or evaluation that you want to pilot with the technology, please reach out. I'm particularly interested in experimenting in the topics or with stakeholders or languages that I haven't experimented with. So to see how it holds up and to find the gaps and address those. But just to say, I think, we're going through this experimentation phase and the rapid development phase. And I think this is probably not going to change, or it's not going to replace us as evaluation managers. But if the sector is willing, it will significantly transform how we do evaluations to make them more efficient and faster and more influential. So with that, thank you for your participation today. Please reach out to me on the contact information there, my LinkedIn or my email. And I wish you a good rest of the gLocal evaluation week. Thank you.